Hello book friends! Welcome to a reading vlog, a Goodreads inspired reading vlog, which is always a good time. I was on Goodreads, logging my reads, you know, the things that you do. At the top, they were advertising an article called The Most Read Books of the 2024 Reading Challenge so far, which was written by Sybil. And I was like, this would make a great vlog if I haven't read a book in each of these categories this year. And if I haven't read a book in a category this year, then I shall read a book. So let's jump right into it. So this is the article. And so I was scrolling, and then we hit fiction, right? Then I realized I have read something in the fiction. I read The Bell Jar earlier this year. I don't physically have it, I got it from the library, but I did read her. I don't think you can say The Bell Jar is a good time, but you know what it did make me think? It made me think, why in 10 Things I Hate About You was... why are Kat's copies so huge? Because the copy that I read was like normal paperback size, but she's got like a heffin' chunker of a copy of The Bell Jar. I will put the still in here, but like, why is it so big? Did like the set design people were like, look, we need to make her look as smart as possible, so we're just gonna make the bell jar like look like it's 10 times as long. I guess like my general thoughts and feelings about it were probably wasn't a good idea for me to read at the moment based on like my headspace, but it was a 4-star read. It was a time. But yeah, so we've sorted fiction, we've got it in the bag. Then we go down to historical fiction. There is a spoiler here, which is that I am in fact currently reading Lessons in Chemistry. I hadn't read anything on this list in this year because I have read Daisy Jones and the Six, but I read it I think the year it came out. Only one other one I actually is like on my radar I know I want to read, which is All Light We Cannot See. So I thought, do you know what? Let's go Lessons in Chemistry. Let's pick the most popular, the most read historical fiction. And let's just say I'm having a time, but we'll get to that. You'll see. Then we get to mystery, and spoiler again. I didn't own a single one of the mystery books. And there were 3 that I did want to read, which was Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone and If We Were Villains. But those were like 10 and 11. And so the number 3 spot was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. The first 3 of these books are from my library, but that's because I am a library girl. I have always been a library girl, and I always will be a library girl. I know it's a bit of a booktube darling, and clearly it is popular. It's number 3. We are vibing so far, unlike me in Lessons in Chemistry. Me and Lessons in Chemistry could take a lesson in chemistry, honestly. Next category, fantasy. I was really hoping Swordcatcher was going to be on here because I have read Swordcatcher, and also fantasy can like skew to a bit longer, but you know, let's see what we have. Books that I actually want to read on this are like The Midnight Library, The Song of Achilles, Circe, Bookshops, and Bone Dust. And then we have The Poppy War, which I do own, The Lost Bookshop, which I want to read, Nine Pounds, which I do own, and Mistborn, which is in my library. So like those are the ones that I want to read from this category. But considering I wanted to read the number 1, the numero uno, I did in fact pick that. Then we have science fiction. I had ones that I wanted to read. So I want to read Dark Matter. I want to read This Is How You Lose the Time War. I want to read All Systems Red. I want to read Dune. I want to read Chain Gang All Stars and Never Let Me Go. But there was only one that I owned on this list. And unlike the others, it was really like low down. I decided I wasn't going to buy any books for this video. I want to be a resourceful girly. So it was either library or books that I owned. None of the books that you can see are marked as library for me were like readily available, so we have gone with the one that I own, which is Fahrenheit 451. I do think like this will be a fun read for me. I also enjoy the cover that I have. I think she's pretty. I like the flame, but Wow, way to sound like a tiny little arsonist. Like, tiny little arsonist, setting all the fires. Then we have the horror section, and we have finally reached another category where I have read one of the books this year. I don't know why I've gone rock and roll on one hand, and then I've gone like gnarly bro on the other hand. I don't know what happened here. What in the dyspraxic was this? I read Bunny this year, and I absolutely love this book. It's probably one of my favorite books of all time. Shout out to Books and Lala. I never would have heard of this book if it wasn't for her. I am glad that it is the third most read horror this year so far. That makes me happy. I immediately then made my friend read it, so I'm contributing to this problem. I will make more of my friends read it, probably this year too, because I'm a pusher. I'm a book pusher. Cue the Mean Girls edit.
Pusher. I push people.
I loved this. I cannot begin to describe to you how much I loved this. But like clearly I am like the other girls when it comes to horror. Because like this, we all decided together is what we're doing this year, and I'm glad. But I would go remiss without talking about what is in 5th place. What is in 5th place for horror? Frankenstein. I haven't read Frankenstein this year. I reread it last year and I annotated it. But the thing about me, the thing that you might not know about me, is that Frankenstein is one of my all-time favourite books ever. I own more than one copy. I just wanted to congratulate the world on the fact that this is the 5th most read horror. I understand that it's probably because, at least here, I know it's one of the books that you have to read for A-level English. And so all of the A-level girlies in the UK are like logging that shit in. But I just love this. If anyone ever wants to come into my comments and talk to me about Frankenstein, you're more than welcome. I love Frankenstein, and I love everyone out there who has logged it this year. And I don't know why I'm like, it's an award speech. Like, I would like to thank my friends and my mum for getting me here, for getting us here. This was a group effort. I say, I haven't read it this year. I didn't contribute to this group effort. I just needed to tell you how happy I was to see Frankenstein so far up. I'm not going to read a romance for this video. It's not happening. I am not in the place in my life where that would be a good idea. We're going to young adult. So I didn't read any of the top 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I have read Heartstopper Volume 5. I got it as soon as I realized it came out. I was probably late to reading it, and I absolutely devoured it. This volume was not my favorite of all of the ones that I have read. I think the second one is still my favorite. This one didn't make me cry, which is shocking, because that's usually what happens. I love how I just said I'm not reading romance because I'm not there, but I did read this. Look, I emotionally survived reading this. She was quick, you know? I already know them. I've read like 4 other things, like 4 other of these. So as a recap, the books that I have read this year on this list of most read books of 2024 are these, plus the Bell Jar. So that makes my TBR for this vlog these 4 boys. I kind of messed up in that I've had this video idea for a while now, and as soon as I had it and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this, I took out the books from the library and then I just didn't do anything for like 3 weeks. I was banking on the fact that nobody would book them out immediately after me, mostly because like when I booked them I didn't have to wait. My current problem is that 2 of the 3 library books in this video I need to give back in like 3 days. It's kind of become a bit of a race between me and my own poor time management. I have like marked out in the books where I need to get to each day, which I don't know if I'm going to manage with both of them, to be honest. It's about 115 pages in each book each day, and 230 pages is actually quite a lot for me in one day. I spent last night, when I realized the pickle that I was in, when I got that library email that was like, hey bitch, give us our books back, someone else wants to read them. And I was like, I read the first like 40-50 pages of both of these yesterday, just to like get a start on it, and my thoughts are very different depending on which of the books that we're talking about. So let's start with Lessons in Chemistry. I may have spent my evening kind of talking to my two best friends about it, kind of bitching to them, to be honest. I'm not enjoying it. I don't want this to come across like I've read 50 pages and I hate it and I'm making this like big sweeping judgment about this book and like what the plot's gonna be and like everything. But there's just something about the tone of this book, the way that the main character is written, that is really bothering me. I think the quote that came out of me last night was, it feels like second wave feminism fan fiction, especially because it's like all shoved into the very first part of the book. Like, it's not enough that she is a lady scientist in the 60s. It's not enough that she is like actively like anti-racist. It's not enough that she is like anti-homophobia. It's not enough that she fundamentally completely educated herself and she's like this genius. It's not enough that she experiences an assault but gets like one up on her attacker. Like it just feels like the main character in this book is just so exceptional. There's nothing that really grounds her as like a real person. Like, she doesn't seem to have any pitfalls. And like, I guess my worry about this book is that it's just going to be a book where there's not really like any challenge in it. Things happen, she gets put into situations, and then she is just like an uber feminist through it. Why does that sound like such a stupid criticism? Because, like, do I want her to be an uber misogynist? No, that's not my problem. My problem is more like, it doesn't feel like a challenge. If you make your character this exceptional, this infallible, one, I can't relate to her. Two, she doesn't feel like a real person. And three, the conflict doesn't really exist. It's like, she is a white lady in the 60s. She is probably not gonna be like the epitome of 21st century progressiveness, and that's what's irking me. And like, me and my friend were talking about, if this was a real book, like if this was a memoir, if this was not fictional, maybe it would be different. But if this wasn't fictional and it was like a memoir or an autobiography, I just wouldn't believe that this person was like this massively exceptional in every single way their entire like adult lives. Like, I would be like, at no point has she had to learn anything. Like, she's just walking around being like the queen of progressive ideology in the 1960s. Like, I just don't believe it. Like, I don't believe it, and I also don't understand what we're gonna learn about the character. And like, the thing is, I've learned all these things in the first 40 pages of this book. In the first 40 pages of this book. This, however, kind of different. There's a different vibe entirely. We're like on this island waiting for this wedding to happen that is gonna go disastrously wrong. I'm enjoying the setup. I'm enjoying the like little pockets of recipes for disasters. Like, you don't know who the disaster is gonna be, but like, there's this like little pocket of like the groom's friends. There's this little pocket of like the bride's sister. There's this little pocket of like the bride's best friend and the best friend's wife. And I'm like, ooh, there is so much potential for like so many things to go so incredibly wrong. So if we're like pitting them against each other, I do significantly want to continue reading this one more, but like I do need to like space out, because I think the best way for me doing this, if I'm going to read both of these so quickly, is to go in between them rather than to like spend a day and a half on one and then spend a day and a half on the other. I'm going to go read some of these two things. This book is struck again. Not even 20 pages after the last update I gave you. They get a dog, and even the dog's exceptional. Even the dog's special. Even the dog's not like the other dogs. And I'm just sat here, like... Like, isn't this woman a mega feminist? Isn't she just, like, the most perfect person ever? Isn't she the most determined, like, exceptional woman that's ever existed? And the man that she's dating is so exceptionally clever too. And her dog that she found on the street is just so exceptional and drawn to her. And they just have this deep emotional understanding. She's had this dog for like a week. I feel like I'm going crazy. And it's to make the most like baseline feminist statements as well. Like, she's like, isn't it, it's fucked up that I'm expected to take your name, so I'm not marrying you. And I'm like, yeah, but like, this wasn't written that long ago. You think you'd be trying to make a bigger statement than that. So you've written a book which has the most exceptional character in it ever, but all of the stances and the points that you're making thus far are like the most baseline thing that a modern audience is going to read and be like, well, yeah, obviously. Like, how this is supposed to connect to me as a 21st century humanoid blob. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be taking away, other than this woman just has an exceptional dog. Generally, my day is pretty free. I do have to clean the boys' cage, and I was thinking I would listen to the audiobook for this while I do that. Hello, baby. Hello, sweet boy. And then there are the other three, asleep in a little box. Is your brother's tail annoying you? And I realised that like I haven't talked about it that much. I haven't even described it. So basically we're on this island and there's a wedding taking place and there's a very ominous vibe. Bride and groom and the guests are very affluent, I guess like successful people, and the ushers or groomsmen are private school boys who haven't really, I guess, like grown past that all that much, or at least not when they're together. We have like some primary narrators because it's from more than one perspective. Yeah, I am actually very much enjoying it. I will say that I don't think that any of the secrets that come out about any of the characters, I don't think all of them are going to be surprises to me. I have my suspicions about what a few of them are. We know that something happens on the evening of the wedding and that someone is hurt in some way. I'm not sure who it is. I have who I hope it isn't, because I enjoy Hannah's character a lot. I enjoy Olivia's character, but I'm like obviously just a bit concerned about her generally. I kind of abandoned you yesterday. I did reach my goal actually with both of these books. So I am currently here and here. So I'm like 75% through both of them now. I just am going to take a second to be really proud of myself, because when I was like, oh shit, I have like 3 days to read these books are almost 400 pages each. So let's say like 780 pages in 3 days. I was like, there's no way. I'm just going to have to listen to the audiobooks to finish these off. I have really messed up. Unless I spend every waking moment reading these books, I'm not going to be able to make it through them. But like, I've surprised myself. I have gotten stuff I needed to get done in the background done, and I've still read 230 pages each day. I'm going to finish these 2 books today. Like, it's going to happen. But like, I've also done it in a way where I don't feel like I'm pushing myself too hard. Like, I don't feel like, oh, I don't want to read anymore, I'm so bored. Or I don't feel like stressed while I'm reading. At the end of the day, maybe I'm a bit like, oh my god, I'm so tired. But that's why I leave this one as like the one that I read at the end of the day, because chapters are shorter and like, I'm thrilled. It's a thriller, so I'm thrilled. I was thinking about like what this vlog is, and I guess it's like an assessment of like, why are people picking up these books? Why are they so popular? Because they do have good average ratings. My wrap up of the video is going to be like more focused on like, why are these books popular? What is it about them that makes so many people pick them up and read them? And do I think they live up to like that? Even though I'm liking this book less, I definitely am coming to like a better conclusion of why I think this book specifically is so popular and so many people are picking it up. As for like my current enjoyment levels, I started enjoying this more, and then it kind of went back to this place where it feels like that second wave fanfiction. It has like this tone, not the writing style. Not the writing style isn't like fanfiction. I don't know if anyone's ever, like, anyone who's watching this watches Strange Aliens. They have basically this entire series effectively on like fake Tumblr stories and like the tropes of fake Tumblr stories and like the origins of fake Tumblr stories. A lot of the scenes in this book feel like things that would be fake Tumblr stories. And I don't want to spoil anything specifically that happens in the book, but like there is even a scene where everybody claps. Like, I just, to be fair, it is technically appropriate. It makes sense in the environment that they're in for everyone to clap, but it is still a scene that is just like, and everybody clapped, and like I can't unsee that about this book. I will say that like it is entertaining. Like, it's not like I'm bored. I would rather read a book that was entertaining that I didn't 100% like than read a book that was boring to me. Then this, I'm enjoying quite a lot. A lot of the reveals aren't as outlandish as I thought. There was one that got me where I was like, oh shit. Like, they're more based in reality. Like, they don't feel completely out of it. I still don't know who I think is the person who is murdered or the murderer. I'm quite excited to find that out in the last portion of this book. Day plan wise, I'm going to go with my sister into Central Cardiff, which very big and scary for me at the moment, and get my nails done for the first time ever. Like, first time that's ever happened to me. And if anyone's wondering why I've never got my nails done before, one, I've never been able to afford to have my nails done. Two, I grew up in rural mid Wales. I don't even know where the closest place is that you could get your nails done. And three, not to be crass, but currently I'm gay and sad, so I can have nails. I think today's outfit was a slay. So that, and as you can tell, I've had my nails done. They have bats on them. Overall, I think I don't necessarily enjoy the process of getting my nails done, but I do love them. I do really, really, really think that they are incredibly cute. Okay, so while I do this, I should probably tell you that I've actually finished both of these books. I finished this right before we left to go to nail techs, and then I finished this via audiobook whilst waiting. So this, I have some thoughts. I'm not going to stand here and like at you. I am going to address this giant pile of clean clothes that I've shoved on my floor because I washed all of my laundry to pack with. Ask me why I did that. Couldn't tell you. So, my final thoughts about fucking lessons in chemistry. Lessons in chemistry is it did not stop feeling like second wave feminism fan fiction. The points that it was making because of the time period it's set in were like such basic points about feminism and intersectionality. Like, I understand that it's set in that time period and that's the point, but I think it's a hard balance for me. You have this character who's so exceptional for her time period in like the rights that she wants and expects, and then also exceptional in the way that she thinks about like other people's rights. So like, you know, like civil rights and gay rights and everything. And like, I'm just kind of struggling because it's like, yeah, but all you're accomplishing is making the most basic point, and also it makes her feel less like a real person. At the end of my audiobook, there was an interview with the author, and I think that has kind of put into perspective for me that because she is like a couple of generations up from me, maybe it's just like not for me. Caricature like that is Elizabeth Zott is more appealing or more reminiscent of that age demographic. Like, those are the things that they are saying, those are the things that they want to see reflected, and like that's the point that they reached, or like that's the point that they saw like their mothers want to reach. That's nostalgic for them, and I guess it's just not for me. It feels like bare minimum and also too much at the same time, because like if Elizabeth had to learn like to be intersectional, or like had a journey where she wasn't just like so exceptional from the get-go about all of these things, then I would see the value in like reading a historic, watching her become this like icon, enlightened person. I love Harriet, actually. Harriet is my favourite character because Harriet actually experiences growth. Harriet changes over the course. Like, she isn't just the strong character that she is when we meet her, which I love and adore. She also becomes a stronger character throughout, and I think that's something that was missing with Elizabeth. And also, like, for a story that's trying to make the point that Elizabeth should be able to, you know, do her own research and her life just shouldn't revolve around man, I think it's not necessarily a pitfall, but like it's very hard to like even take that completely on board in a narrative that is so reflective of Elizabeth's relationship to a man, and like that does come into play with solving like the final conflicts of the story, which is why this ended up being a 3-star. I guess, like Elizabeth Zott, I'm just not like the other girls, and it wasn't to my personal taste, but regardless, I will talk to you about the guest list now. So, first of all, I'm giving it a 3.75. I don't think it quite reached a 4 for me, and I think that's in a lot of the, like, I saw the direction that a lot of it was going in. I am personally fine with unlikable main characters, and like most of the characters in this book are pretty unlikable. There are only 2 characters that I actually liked all that much, which are Hannah and Olivia. It's kind of just like a book about the horrors of men, and in another way, Lessons in Chemistry is also a book about the horrors of men. I learned some stuff about me when it comes to reading thrillers, which is I don't personally need everything, like literally everything, to be connected. I didn't need every trauma to link in to the conclusion of the book. I did enjoy all the reveals, which is why it does have a high rating. Hello. I have done a couple of hours, I think. I am now 102 pages in. Basically, the Midnight Library is about a character called Nora who takes an overdose and finds herself in the Midnight Library, where she has the ability to look at her life and return to lives where things are different from the life that she was just in. So she gets to go into those lives and see if they were any better, and that's kind of the general notion of this. I knew that there was going to be some heavier stuff that was going to touch quite close to home for me. I did have like a moment while I was listening to the audiobook just for the first portion before we go to the Midnight Library, where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be reading this at this point in my life. But then I was like, no, that's kind of the point of the book, is for someone who has a lot of parallel feelings or life experience to read it. I can guess where this is gonna go. I know that this author tends to have quite a hopeful tone when he tells stories like this. Nora consistently is in turmoil about choices that she's made and how her life could be different if she had made different choices. It's a very interesting concept to explore your regrets in a way of like, what would your life look like if you had made a different choice? I think I just like the whimsy of it. I think that there is something so inherently like whimsical about going through lots of different lives that you could have. I guess like I find it intriguing. I'm anticipating the different lives that she has popped in, and I have enjoyed like seeing her life, like the lives that we've been in so far. I'm already feeling like I anticipate what the message is going to be. I see exactly where the story is going to like end up and go. I kind of know what the ending is, and I know what the moral message is that it's trying to tell you. It's very heavy-handed. I don't think the moral messages in here are going to give me the character development that I foresee for Nora. But who knows? Maybe it will change my life. Maybe I'm being harsh on you. Maybe I'm underestimating you, and you should never underestimate books. It's the 7th. I finished Midnight Library last night. I was correct in my assumption that the way that this wrapped up did great on me. I don't want to spoil the ending, but like it's really hard to do this. So like if you really don't want any clue of how this ends, ever skip ahead. I'll put like a time here. I am happy that Nora goes from being suicidal to not being suicidal, right? I think that is character progression that is earned through the story. She's learned a lot of perspective, but even if you learn a lot of perspective, I just fundamentally dislike that she goes from being so unwell that she tries to take her own life to the conclusion of this book being like she's cured, she's fine. She goes from being unhappy in her life for actual valid reasons. It's not like there weren't any actual reasons why Nora was unhappy in the life that she did have, to then she's just like, everything will be fine now, even though like changing your life is hard and you're still not going to be like ecstatic over the moon. It did get very on the nose and repetitive about the messaging, which is what I was worried about, and I kind of already knew that that was going to happen. So I ended up giving it a 3-star. I enjoyed the adventure of it. I'm not sure I personally took away a lot in the like, growing feelings stuff. Because I was about to say this clearly just isn't for me. But like if we're targeting this at like people who are struggling with their mental health, who do feel those very heavy feelings, then this is targeted to me. And I don't know, people do come away from this feeling very inspired and having a new lease of life and a way of looking at things. But I think if you're someone who's struggled with your mental health for a very long time and has been in ups and downs, it's probably not going to do that for you, and it certainly didn't do that for me. Hello, it's the 8th now. We're in the afternoon and I have finished part 1 of this bad boy. I can tell you right now, I fully understand why everyone talks about this book so much. This is so relevant to this moment in time, to this moment in history, and like, it's wild to me that this was written in the 50s, because it's predicting things about the future which are like so accurate in their own way. Like, obviously some of the things are like a bit off, they're a swing and a miss, but they are comparable to things. This man's wife, they're not called earphones or wireless earphones, but she has them. Like, she effectively has AirPods, and that's crazy. I see a lot of the themes in this book, especially in regard to like the consumption of media and how mass media kind of goes from trying to make us think to just trying to entertain us. I'm not one of those people who is like, TikTok is destroying our attention spans and the internet has ruined us as people and nobody reads proper literature anymore, and back in the day people were smarter and like had better media literacy and did way more thinking. I'm not necessarily someone who hardcore believes that. I find myself more in the school of thought of like, we've always done things to kind of like interact with a certain type of attention span. Like, I don't know which podcast he was talking about it, but Hank Green was talking about TikTok, and he was talking about how, you know, before we had TikTok and everything like that, back in the days before we had devices to stimulate us in that way, we'd be talking to our friend but watching birds, we'd be doing something. I don't think we can hardline say that these sorts of things like cultivate a behavior in us, like having a shorter attention span, all that kind of stuff, because ultimately like all these things are appealing to our baseline nature. Like, TikTok works because it's tapping into our baseline nature of wanting like that dopamine release and stuff. And it's not that before TikTok existed or before these things existed we didn't do things that stimulated that. It's just that it's so much easily or like more readily available to stimulate that now. Before mass media, not every single book was like a literary like think piece. There were still trashy novels. Like, there have always been trashy novels, because ultimately as people we don't want to think all the time. Sometimes we do just want to be entertained, but at the same time mass media and like culturally, I guess there has been a shift in the last however long, I guess since the 50s. And obviously this was written in response to Nazi authoritarianism. We're more in a like late stage capitalism kind of situation, which is actually more comparable in here. Like, this is the book that is telling you what late stage capitalism is like. Yeah, we have a culture which is full of, you know, the attention economy and just trying to be entertained rather than being told to think. You know, you work all the time, then you come home and you're so exhausted from work you just want to be entertained. And then you reset. You don't have time to think. And that is why this book, I guess, like, feels so relevant. I've gotten to the point now where we're like pivoting. I am very much enjoying this. I will say, writing style wise, it can be very symbolic and metaphorical in the language, and most of that works for me, but there are just a couple of moments where it's more of a struggle, because obviously, as I've said, this was written in the 1950s with like the cultural consciousness of the 1950s, and then it's going into the abstract of what the future looks like. So there's just like, I guess, like a lot of things that I'm sometimes not going to get because I don't have the cultural context of being someone in the 1950s. I'm going to get back to reading. I'm very excited about it. Hello. I have just finished part 2. One of my favourite quotes I thought I would share with you at this stage, which is, "And don't look to be saved in any one thing, person, machine, or library. Do your own bit of saving, and if you drown, at least die knowing you were headed for shore." There's a lot of very good quotes. I've been underlining in this a lot. I have not been doing that many annotations, just like a few little pieces here and there. The plot has just thickened. It's thickened in a way we've seen coming. It's been very foreshadowed, and also like we just kind of knew that what was going to happen eventually. The colliding of two worlds, the inevitable conflict. But I'm quite excited about it. I'm very, very interested to see how this book ends. Again, it's just so crazy seeing someone write something, 70 years ago, and it be so relevant. I guess like I've got quite a strong idea of why this book is so popular. I don't think my conclusions on this are gonna surprise anyone. It is the night of the 9th. Today did not go as planned, but be proud of me because I did finish Fahrenheit 451, but be disappointed in me because I don't know what my rating is. I feel like I need to sleep on it. So you will find out in the wrap up, which is about to happen. So you won't be in anticipation for too long. It really resonated with me in the specific time that I live in. This book is so incredibly relevant to this moment, and it's spooky. It didn't fail the landing. There's just something that happens at the end of this book that makes total narrative sense, but from like a logical sense. It was bugging me a little bit, but that's okay. I'm kind of like gonna sleep on it. I'm gonna decide how much of an impact that has on my rating. Whatever happens, it's not getting lower than a 4. It does a really good job of like being about something that could lead to a lot of pretension and could come across poorly in that way, but it has such an immense ability to ground itself. It kind of tackles that turn into pretension or that danger directly. I guess you'll find out my rating tomorrow, and you'll get the wrap up of this video where we shall be asking, why are these books popular and do they deserve it? Hello, welcome to the wrap up of this video where we theorize and try and answer the question of why are these books the most popular of the year. The first, obviously, category of this video was fiction, and for that we had The Bell Jar, which I gave a 4-star. So why do I think that The Bell Jar is becoming more popular, or has been so popular this year? I mean, ultimately with classics, there's going to be a portion of like, it's timeless. You know, there's a reason why things become classics. The spotlight that we have with everything like the Eras Tour, and, you know, just generally speaking, there seems to be a real focus in on that. Maybe we're returning to like examine a lot more literature and a lot more classics that are female written. And what I will say about this entire article in general, there is a lot of female authorship. The book itself, not puppies and rainbows, and it's actually, there's parts of it that are quite challenging. It is a fiction, but it is very autobiographical to Sylvia Plath's life. You know, the book was made famous not just by her body of work and the renown that she already got throughout her life, but because of her death at her own hand. This book really illustrated how that course of events took place, and like, it's a difficult read. It's hard to get through, and there's obviously, you know, it was written in a time period of a lot of racism and homophobia, and those things do show up in this book. So like, it's not an easily digestible read. I think we have this idea that we've moved into a non-intellectual space when it comes to reading. I've talked a lot about this with the Fahrenheit 51 portion of this vlog, but I don't think that that's true, and this list is a really good example of that. A lot of the works on here are quite challenging. They're not just easy consumable content. I think that maybe we're in a time period of reflection on mental illness and mental health, and this book is incredibly confronting to that. So we are in a mental health crisis. We have been even since before the pandemic, and that is just, you know, absolutely doubled that down on it. So it's not shocking to me that people are turning to a book that is so connected to that. The next category was historical fiction, with the number one being Lessons in Chemistry. And as we know, I didn't particularly enjoy this book. It got a 3-star from me. Yeah, it didn't appeal to me, but like it clearly appeals to a lot of people. It is an incredibly read, and it is also, all of these books are very highly rated. What is making this the number one historical fiction pick of this year so far? My belief and my theory kind of comes down to 2 points. One is that there is a TV adaptation, and whenever there's a TV adaptation of, or a movie adaptation of books, the amount of people who want to read it before it comes out or it goes on book club lists, yeah, I genuinely see that is a big contributor to why a lot of people would read this, because they're excited about it. The other reason is that obviously before you even get to being adapted, you have to have a basis of like popularity to get there, right? So what is it about this book that makes it so popular? And I had to think about this a lot as someone who didn't particularly enjoy it and had a lot of criticism for it, but ultimately it is a feel-good story. You do get to just read about this woman who shares your values as the reader, most likely, and she does go through difficulties and hardships. I don't think that those difficulties and hardships challenge her anywhere near as much as I personally find appealing in a book. I didn't feel like she had any growth, but it's going to appeal to an age range that kind of goes from people my age to people older than me. It's going to even more reflect their views and things that they find important and have a nostalgic element for them. I see this book as an incredibly good book club pick if we're going for like the stereotype of book clubs of being kind of like middle-aged women getting to hang out and talk about something that they enjoyed. I think that this works perfectly for that demographic. Ultimately, it's a quirky story, it has whimsy, it challenges very little, but I understand why that has mass appeal and why people would enjoy reading that. It's satisfying. Moving on from that to the mystery genre, I then read The Guest List, which is the third most popular read. I'm going to give it a 3.5. A lot of the appeal of this isn't necessarily through like a shocking twist, a surprise. I don't think you don't see where the book is going. The appeal of this book is in the satisfaction of the ending of the story, because so many mystery thrillers end in a way that is the plot twist at the end ruins the story, or it doesn't feel quite as satisfying as you want it to be. So there's a lot of value in that, and I think that is really what is like built the popularity of the story, as well as being well written and the characters feeling like they are people. I think there is a lot of atmosphere in this. So I get it. I understand why this book is popular. Next is the fantasy genre, with the number one being The Midnight Library, which I give a 3. We're learning about me that I tend to rate very popular books 3 stars. It does mean that like I'm gonna struggle a little bit more with like fully understanding why some of these things are popular or why people are so passionate about them. It is a book that is exploring a universal feeling. Everyone, while they haven't felt suicidal, has felt regret. They have felt hopelessness. They have felt disappointment. They have sat and wondered, well, if I had done this differently, how would my life look? This is a great whimsical exploration of the human condition, and books about the human condition that feel relatable to everyone are always going to do well, are always going to be popular, because they're tapping into just the feelings that we all have. And on top of that, it's leaving you with this hopeful, inspired feeling and message. I didn't personally feel satisfied by the ending of it. It missed the mark on giving me what it gives to other people, but like I do understand this idea of it's the populist idea again, in the same way that Lessons with Chemistry is. It's reaffirming you. It is almost a comfort in the way that the Bell Jar isn't, because these are, I guess, appealing to the same kind of themes, the same ideas, but in entirely different ways. it's also just whimsical, because the things that I did enjoy about this book, because I didn't hate it, I did enjoy it, I did like it as a story in the same way that I liked Lessons in Chemistry. It's just not my favourite thing ever, and I do have criticisms of it. It has that satisfying element. You get all of this setup of all these different lives that this character could have had, and then you get to go and explore those. I fully understand why people would find that appealing. Moving on to sci-fi, which I read Fahrenheit 451 for. I don't think anyone is surprised by why I'm going to say I think this is popular. I give this a 4.5 stars. It is my second highest rated book in this video. I really adored this, but it is spooky. It was a spooky experience reading it, which is why I think it's so popular, is that it's just so relevant to today, and a lot of the things that it says are so accurate. It is kind of like mesmerizing, but also devastating that this was written 50 years ago about a distant future, which I guess we now live in, and it is so relevant to us. I was just reading earlier today about how we also are experiencing book bans in school libraries in the UK, because it's very, very wildly publicised about in America, but that's also happening here, especially around queer books. I just think that it makes so much sense for people to be reading this at the moment, and I encourage more people to read it. If you haven't read this, I would encourage you to read it. Okay, now we have horror, and the third most read horror book of this year is Bunny, and this is the lowest rated of the books that I have been talking about in this wrap up. This book is Marmite. You will either love this or you will hate it. I cannot imagine anyone coming away from this having a middling opinion of it. It is one of my favourite books ever, so I'm on the love it category. It is a 5-star, it's my highest rated in this video. My immediate urge when I read it was, I need to make someone else read this so that I can talk about it with them. I need to write essays on this book. I need someone to talk about this book with. I think it's really interesting that it's so popular, because while I would expect it because it's very well written, I also don't expect it because it is an acquired taste. I wouldn't even be surprised if the majority of people who did read this, because this is based on like the most read book, not like the best rated books of the year so far. I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of people reading this rate it lowly. They don't like it. How weird it is makes it appealing. People want to know, they want to be in the know, they want to experience this thing, this outlandish thing. So I guess my theory on why it's so read is because of that. It's got a reputation, and this is not a recommendation, because ultimately, like, if you don't like weird shit, don't read this. You need to go into it being like, this is a weird book, and the tone of it is satire. The floweriness of it, the writing style of it is part of the satire and weirdness of this book. And for the last category that I will be talking about in this video, the most highly rated of these books, for young adult, we have The Heartstopper Volume 5, which came out this year. So obviously, like, these are highly, highly anticipated, and they are so popular, so I'm not shocked that this is here. Again, I guess, like, this is appealing to, like, that comfort. These are challenging in their own way, and there is an adaptation of them, which, again, you know, brings a lot more readership. This being something that is a quick read for most people, it's not like it's a new release that's gonna sit on people's shelves, because it takes, what, at most, like, an hour or two to read the entire thing. I'm sure these get reread a lot as well on top of that. People are very emotionally invested in these characters. I'm very emotionally invested in these characters. I'm not even reading romance-heavy books as much as I can avoid it at the moment. I haven't finished Jane Thorns because of that element of the story, even though I'm dying to read it. But this is so comforting to me, even, that it still managed to be something that I read this year. And this is just levity. If the other books are like appealing to people because we all have shit mental health, this is helping with that. And even if you personally don't like them, I think it's so easy to see the appeal of them. If I was going to urge you to go out and read one of these and add to the readership, it would be Fahrenheit 451. It might give you a crisis, but it's a good crisis. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.